Are we gonna make this some weird oppression Olympics dick measuring contest where it's like, well, actually, Kate, I am this oppressed, right? I take 8 inches of oppression every single day of my life. And it's like, dude, why? Today's topic, how we choose to communicate with people, especially folks that we don't seem to agree with. Now, if you've seen my most recent video essay, you know that this is something that I'm thinking about a lot. And I think it's really important, not just in terms of conversations that we have with our friends, but also the larger social and political situation that we find ourselves in America. I'm gonna tell you guys a story about someone that I would have said is my friend, and we ended up having quite a bit of a falling out, pretty much for no reason. To understand the story, I think I need to give you guys a little bit of background. At my alma mater, senior year of college, we ended up losing 2 professors, both black professors, one of them trans. This was right before the spring semester started. This really shook up the school because everyone else up until that point, even the administration, was thinking that these professors were going to be conducting their courses for that semester. And when they left, they ended up sending out an email to a select group of folks within their classes, saying they're experiencing a lot of microaggressions as well as ultimately a hostile work environment. And they specifically said that Williams needs to do something about its violent practices. As a result of these 2 professors leaving, there was a lot of student activism seeking to remedy the situation for these professors, not necessarily so that they could come back, but so that the work environment for professors of color as well as trans professors could be better ultimately. One of my friends, we're gonna call her Kate, it's my go-to fake name for all my stories, I guess. We'd grab meals on occasion, they had met my family, definitely would have said, yes, you are someone who I consider a good friend of mine. I hadn't seen them since pretty much the beginning of senior year, and so I thought it'd be really nice to catch up with them. I also knew that they were very involved in this. I wasn't working directly on any of that kind of activism, but it was something that I was paying attention to. And so I wanted to, catch up with them and also kind of just chat with them about, hey, what's the kind of situation on campus? How is this activism developing? What are people thinking? All that kind of stuff. Keep in mind, I think I had done, not to toot my own horn, but I had done, I think, far more than the average student on campus. After these professors left, I decided to look into whatever publications that they had, and I read some articles that were talking about microaggressions that experienced around our college town, but nothing about the college itself. And so going into this conversation with my friend, my question was, as someone who is not a professor, as someone who doesn't have this insider information almost to what their experiences are, I can imagine what they could be going through, being trans, being black, but I don't know exactly. Going into that conversation, I was thinking we would probably be at our best in terms of serving these kinds of folk if we knew the kinds of obstacles that they're running up against. So, grabbing dinner with Kate. It's a lovely time, just hanging out, vibing, right? And I've asked them, hey, I know you're working on this student activism. What do you think about it? She was like, oh, actually, I'd want to hear from you first about what you think. And so I was just like, yeah, I think it's super great. Students are being very proactive about this, right? Trying to bring some change to the institution in these ways. I guess my question was, when they sent out this email, they specifically cited violent practices, right? And as someone who, again, is not a professor, I didn't really know exactly what they meant. The words that I just said to you were the only words that I said to my friend Kate, and that is all it took for my friend to basically go off on me for the next 10-15 minutes, basically saying, Jamal, it's people like you that are part of the problem. You don't seem to believe that these things are happening. And genuinely in that moment, I was like,
oh, snap, maybe I am kind of on the wrong side of this.
And the more that I listened to them, the more I realized, actually, if I didn't say exactly what you wanted me to say in this particular moment, you were going to be very upset with me, no matter what. I came to the realization that actually you're not talking with me about this thing, you're kind of talking at me and lambasting me over genuinely something that I didn't even say and a set of attitudes that I don't even hold. And so after she finished, I, kind of collected myself and I was like, hey, I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm not saying that I don't believe what these professors are saying. I just, as a student, don't have access to these particular set of experiences. Then it kind of, in a weird way, started to devolve even further, if you can imagine. Me saying, I don't know what they're experiencing prompted her to say,
oh, well, yeah, you went to a very bougie private school for high school.
And I was just like, okay, yes, that is true. But also, my family was on welfare. for a very long time. Are we gonna make this some weird oppression Olympics dick measuring contest where it's like, well, actually, Kate, I am this oppressed, right? I take 8 inches of oppression every single day of my life. And it's like, dude, why? Right? Like, why would we bother to say that? You know, as a student that cares about this issue, if I were to go to administration and be like, hey, fix your violent practices, it's like, okay, great. What does that mean? Right? Genuinely, what does that mean? And because I'm not equipped with the knowledge or experience to translate that into, well, it means this, therefore these policies need to change, it kind of just becomes, at least for someone like me who is interested in helping but doesn't have the knowledge, I don't know what to do, I guess I'll just show up. And that's to some degree fine, right? But at least in my mind, if you're trying to build a coalition around this idea that, hey, this thing matters, then probably everyone should be equipped with the kind of knowledge that is going to make their action effective. That being said, keep in mind, it was bad enough for them to have left the school. That's a significant amount of issues to be facing. It's not just like someone cut me off in traffic. It's I'm literally willing to leave my career for these set of issues. Going through that kind of turmoil to that point, it would be, I imagine, challenging to have to reshare what you went through with everyone. There's this kind of almost, in my mind, catch-22 between sharing that experience and informing people so that others can be on your side and also be equipped with knowledge to help. But that runs up against, well, it's challenging and a little bit unfair to ask the person, be like, yeah, now tell me about how they were super mean to you and they said all that fucked up shit. That aside though, this conversation with my friend really didn't continue for much longer. Okay, I'll do my best to be more educated about this, right? Taking a humble position instead of just being like, yo, why are you going off on me about this thing that I clearly care about, but like, I'm just asking you a question about it. And after I said that, she like doubled down and was like,
yeah, you know what? This is gonna be a great learning opportunity for you.
And it's just like, I can't imagine what the experience of talking to this kind of person who is exhibiting this kind of behavior would be like if you were someone that is any degree even less in agreement with them, right? I'm someone who's ostensibly on your side and you're going off on me. I can't imagine what that's like for someone that's ignorant about this, right? And just wants to learn a little bit more, or was someone that is kind of on the fence and could go either way. Like, is this legit? Is it not? If they were to encounter my friend in this scenario, they'd be like, well, okay, I'm completely turned off to caring about this thing because it seems like the kind of people that care about this are just gonna yell at me for no reason, basically. And I think that's really what's at the crux of this story. You can care about something super passionately all day long, but unless you can communicate with others effectively about it, it's only you that's going to care about it. There, I guess, are kind of 2 different paths that you could take. You could stay on the path of, you know what, as long as I have a really strong and committed, tightly knit, very finite set of like 5-10 people that are really about this thing, we can just try to get this going on our own. This person is going to go back to, you know, the cohort of people that already think exactly like them, and they're just going to yes them, and no one else is going to be welcomed into that fold. The other way of going about it though is trying to do the work of, hey, you know what? You may not be someone who believes what I believe yet, but if I can make a good faith argument, maybe you'll believe me. And if you don't, then you probably weren't going to be on the side of this thing anyway. I think what's also frustrating about this kind of behavior is that it assumes that everyone almost emerges from the womb, right, as some enlightened god that understands every issue with the utmost clarity and utmost nuance. I was saying heinous things up until, actually even through, like really heinous things, genuinely would get me fired from a job if I were to say those things later in life when I was in high school. And when I got to college, I realized, oh, actually, I have some learning to do. Some of these things aren't okay to say. I should change my behavior and attitudes about these things. Which is to say, people are capable of learning and changing and growing. And so to have this antagonistic attitude towards someone who is genuinely trying to inquire, but even more than that, maybe they're just unknowledgeable and ignorant, assumes that you yourself are in this exalted position of, I've always had knowledge
forever,
and you're an idiot if you aren't already up to speed on this issue. To me, that just feels incredibly patronizing and also very unproductive, right? If we're, again, trying to do the work of convincing people to be on your side about something, no one is convinced with that attitude. And again, I'm talking about this within the framework of, you know, my friend who happened to be ultra hyper liberal, right? But this isn't just a liberal problem. It's a people problem. Conservatives do this, liberal people do this. Any kind of person is capable of shutting others down and shutting them out. And so genuinely, if there is a thesis to this video, it is very simply, bro, calm down. Like, I'm literally just trying to vibe. That's all that's happening here. I'm on your side, and if I'm not, just talk to me normally. If I don't say something absolutely heinous to you, then like there's no need to yell. There's no need to get upset. There's no need to belittle me or treat me like I'm an idiot. This combative stance that we can have with one another comes from a place of this person that I'm interacting with and I'm going to argue with cruelly isn't talking with me in good faith. So I must combat them in the way that they're probably going to combat me. And it's just like, actually, some people aren't your adversaries. The reason that I think this kind of story is important is because, again, look around in America, right? We are at each other's throats constantly. And that's not to say that there is some kind of like false equivocation of blame here, like, oh, both sides need to do it. Like, yes, we all need to be more reasonable. That certainly isn't to say, though, that there aren't things that we know are objectively wrong, like racism, sexism, storming the Capitol. All that stuff is objectively wrong. But for everything else within that fringe, right, of extremism, I think all of us can just chill a little bit, you know, and just actually see each other as human beings who hopefully are talking to each other in good faith. And if you're not talking in good faith, brother, what are you doing? Fix your attitude. I want to hear what you have to say about this issue. Are we too quick to shut others down, or is it actually worthwhile to kind of take on the combative stance that my friend had in that moment? I want to hear from you. See you guys next time.